Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing.
Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to share my 2024 Bookish Superlatives. I love this concept of highlighting different books throughout the year that maybe aren't my favorite books of the year, but they do stand out in my mind for a particular reason. For the last few years, I've been doing this over on my podcast, Talk Bookish to Me, but because of the scheduling, I was not able to fit it in this year, but I still wanted to share my Bookish Superlatives. So that's what I'm here to do today. I have 12 different categories, I believe, and these are like those superlatives that you hear about in high school, like the most popular, the most likely to succeed, that sort of thing, but I'm doing it and making it bookish. So without further ado, I'm going to go through the different categories and award the superlative to the book that I think. It doesn't have to be a 2024 release. It's a book that I read this year that I think deserves the award. So superlative number 1, the most popular book. So this is like the most shelved or the one I've heard everyone talking about. And I'm going to award this to The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. In case you've been under a rock, let me just tell you, this is categorized as a mystery thriller. It's more literary though. It actually did win the Goodreads Choice Award for the mystery thriller category. I personally did not love this book, but the writing was really good. I think if you go into it more knowing that it's a very character focused, multi-layered POVs, timeline type story, it's a little bit slower paced than you would imagine. I do love the cover, but it's definitely the most popular because everybody was raving about this book and it won the Goodreads Choice Award. So that definitely says something. All right, the next superlative I have is most likely to succeed. And that is a book that I'll be talking about and recommending for years to come. And it has to go to The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton. I read this for the Libroniauts book club, but I was the one that picked the book because I had someone come on my podcast and recommend this book and it just sounded so good. And then I looked into it further after the podcast episode and saw that it had a very high average star rating. Apparently it was a book of the month pick at some point, and I was just really intrigued. So I picked it up and I am so happy that I did. So then when Elise, the owner of the Libroniauts book club, said, "Hey, do you want to come on my podcast and talk about a sci-fi?" I was like, yes, I want to talk about this book. And I do not regret it. It was such an impactful read for me. I'll definitely be recommending it. It definitely like sent me down this spiral of like ecological sci-fi type books. And I'm hoping to read more in the new year. The next superlative is most improved. And this could be like a book or a series that started slow but really picked up. And I had a hard time because I'm trying not to repeat books, but I definitely have another one on this list that I would also put into this category. But the one that I selected was Ready or Not by Kara Bastone. Now, I rated this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. But from the first few chapters, I was a little hesitant going in because this is a contemporary romance story about an unplanned pregnancy. And for those that don't know, I am infertile, like I deal with infertility and stuff. So knowing that she like accidentally got pregnant and it was going to be talking about her being pregnant in depth, like I think the book starts, she's in her doctor's office. And it's just very detailed about her being pregnant, how she's feeling, and all of those things. I just kind of, I was like, whew, what a heavy way to start a romance book, you know? But I loved how the adult characters actually acted like adults in this situation. And the romance was so cute. So I loved this book. But the start for me was a little bit like, whew, is this book going to be for me? But it definitely just went up, up, up from there. All right, most likely to change the world. Yes, this is dramatic, but I believe that this is a good superlative to give for a book that can make people like read a genre or a trope that they don't normally like and then maybe fall in love with that particular book. And the one that I have to recommend is None Shall Sleep by Ellie Marney. I absolutely am obsessed with this book, obsessed with this series, the writing, the characters, the plot, the pacing, so good. And also I read the sequel this year as well, and the third book comes out in February, so I'm really looking forward to that. But this is a YA mystery thriller. I know a lot of you guys out there my viewers don't read a lot of young adult anymore, or if you do, you kind of stay away from mystery thrillers, but I promise you that this one is worth it. If I can convince you to read one mystery thriller, it's not Jennifer Lynn Barnes, it would be this one. I mean, Ellie Marney, I don't know, I was obsessed. I could not flip the pages fast enough, and I just thought the payoff at the end was really worth it. And the second book was just as good. So highly recommend None Shall Sleep. It's about two older teens. One is a survivor of a serial killer, and one is an FBI like protege, like training to be in the FBI type thing. And they team up to go interview serial killers, like young serial killers, to kind of like figure out why they're serial killers. And then they get involved in an active case, and they have to work with one of these young serial killers. If you like Criminal Minds, if you like the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, if you like Hannibal, Silence of the Lambs, those type of things, you have to read this book. Okay, moving on. Most likely to become famous. This is a potential to be loved by the masses type book, and I don't think it's going to be as popular maybe this year, but I think as more and more Christmases go on, The Christmas You Found Me by Sarah Morgenthaler has the potential to be loved by the masses. So most likely to become famous, it gets that. So Sarah Morgenthaler has not written in a few years, and in this book you find out why that is. This is a very emotional read. It says The Christmas You Found Me, but I don't think it has to be read around Christmas time. I do think it is a good like winter type read. So you could read it in like January or February. Actually, you can read it anytime, but I think winter, it like elevates the experience, if you know what I'm saying. This is a romance, but it does have heavier themes and topics, like grief, parents with dementia, childhood illness, but there is a content warning page in the beginning of the book. So if you're out browsing the bookstore and you're thinking about reading this book or picking it up, just flip to the first couple of pages and read the content warning page. It might even be available on the author's website. Yeah. And if you want more information about the content warnings, just message me over on Instagram at Lavender Mud, and I'll take a picture of the content warning page and I will send that over there to you. So just let me know you're interested in that. But I adore this book. I cried multiple times, and because it's like says Christmas in the title, I think more and more people will pick it up as the Christmases go on. So I think it has the chance to become famous. All right, next up is Class Clown. I love when a book can make me laugh. And the number one book, I mean, there are other books that have made me laugh this year, but the one that stands out in my mind is Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. I remember laughing out loud multiple times while reading this book. I remember when I was reading it, why I was reading it, and I also watched the adaptation, which the humor did not, I mean, it was an okay movie. It had the vibes of the book, but the whole section that was like the super funny part of the book was left completely out of the movie. So I would definitely read the book rather than watch the show. So if you've watched the show and you're like, it was okay, you need to read the book. Trust me, it was so funny. But this is also a romance story, but it's also like this woman who is just trying to like kind of find herself, and she goes out into the wilderness to this like hiking thing with other people, and I just loved it so much. And it also has like an age gap romance to it, so I loved it. Okay, next up is Life of the Party, and entertaining or just like super fun read, and I'm giving it to one of my very recent reads, The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. This book was so entertaining, and so like I read it so fast. I read it in 2 sittings. I read like 150 pages one day, and I would have kept reading, but the day was over. So the next day I binged the rest. I mean, I know there's people out there that don't like Freida McFadden. I know there's people out there that don't like this book. In fact, just the other day, it was on someone's like worst books of the year list, and I get it. She's not for everybody. This book is not going to be for everybody, but I was so intrigued. I had so many theories, and I just realized how brilliant this author is at what she does. So I was just so entertained. It was so bingeable, and I absolutely loved it. All right, next up, most unique. This could be the plot, the characters, or the writing. And I'm giving this one to Very Sincerely Yours by Carrie Winfrey. I read this with Keisha from A Book Like You. This was on my TBR. She actually made me this physical TBR spreadsheet. So she knew the books that I had on my physical TBR. But then over time, I was like, I'm never going to get around to reading this. So I was going to unhaul it. It used to be stacked up over there on the other side of my bookshelf. And she said, oh, we need to read this book. And I was like, oh, I'm actually thinking of unhauling it. And she's like, well, you got to pull it out of that unhaul pile. And then we said we were going to read it sometime this fall. And then I didn't think we were going to read it when we were going to read it. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to make it happen. So I read it. And there were so many times at the beginning of this book that I was like, I don't think this book is for me. This is so like unique. This is so different than I thought it was going to be, and maybe it's not for me. And this is another book that it started slow, but I thought could get better. It just got better and better as time went on. But I became obsessed with this book, and I'm so glad that I stuck with it. I kept reading, and that I had Keisha to kind of like, talk to about the book as it went on. And she will agree. It definitely has some very niche, very peculiar things about the book, but it just made it overall like funny and heartwarming and wholesome. And yeah, so I have to give it to Very Sincerely Yours. All right, next category is the biggest drama queen, an overly dramatic book or an overly dramatic character. And I'm awarding it to a character, Naomi from So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. So Naomi is not the main character. She's the main character's best friend. And if you know the plot of the book, she literally says 2 words over and over and over. And I just wanted to slap her. Like, we get it. You're so thirsty. I could not with her. All right, the next category is the most creative. And again, this can be plot, character, or writing. And you may think that this goes in the most unique, but in my mind, they're totally different categories. So the most creative goes to We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clywer. I thought this was super unique because it came from Reddit. It was originally a Reddit story, and then it got traditionally published. Not only that, but I loved the police transcripts, the Morse code. There were other like puzzles and clues throughout the book. It had a map that had like puzzles and clues in it. And then just the story itself was kind of like a puzzle and a clue. So I really enjoyed my reading experience of this. I really thought it was creative, and yeah, I can't wait to read more stories like this in the future. Okay, the next category is the cutest couple, obviously self-explanatory, and I'm giving this to Emma and Justin from Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I did have like a runner-up, but I was like, let me just give it to the best. So Emma and Justin from Just for the Summer, the initial setup and their chemistry, and how he would write little like surveys and like date surveys for her to check off like what she was interested in doing. And like, I don't know, I just absolutely love them. I love Abby's characters, and these characters are no different. So Emma and Justin are my favorite couple of 2024. And my last category is the best dressed. And this is just the most beautiful book cover that I read the book of this year. And I had several. I had about 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I had 5 books that I was bouncing back and forth around on. I was like, oh, this is a really beautiful cover. And then I was like, oh, this one's really beautiful too. This one's really beautiful too. But I decided to award Best Dress to My Dark Romeo by L.J. Shin and someone Huntington. I adore this book cover. The colors, the dreaminess quality, the angels, the clouds, just, this is a beautiful book cover. You can't deny that. And if you've seen the special edition of this book with the sprayed edges, it's even more beautiful, you know? But I had to award it to my Dark Romeo, and I can't wait to read more books in that series. But those are my 2024 Bookish Superlatives. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Leave the sparkle emoji, because all of these books deserve a little sparkle and a little shine. But I hope you guys are having a lovely day or night, and I'll see you guys again in another video very soon. Bye, friends.